Planet Radio. I'm Randy Moggins. The website is offplanetradio.com. And this is kind of a return to roots program for me today, because lately the focus has not been on the UFO scene, largely because ufology in the United States is absolutely trashed right now by the extent of bullshit that's being spread around. That said, there is legitimate news out there. There are things going on, and there are legitimate topics to discuss. And to that end, I have with us a very special guest. He has not been with us in over 4 years, much to my chagrin. We find out we talk a lot, we share data, but we really haven't done a show. And so I want to welcome back to the show. You haven't heard of him in 4 years. You haven't gone back through the archives. My man Tony Topping is here, and we're going to go into the whole issue of contact, the cost of contact, what's really going on. We're going to touch on some of the stuff regarding Tom DeLonge and his To the Stars organization, as well as the peripheral stuff that's been going on for months now with the circus at Gaia TV and Corey Good. Tony, hey brother, welcome back to the show.
Oh, hello, Randy. Thank you very much from across the pond for having me on. I haven't actually read on purpose any of Corey Good's material or Tom's material. I think the reason for that is to give a contrast to the audience, so that the listener has a contrast. So I'm not kind of tainted in any way, kind of thing. What they hear from the horse's mouth. I'm a Yorkshire man, so us guys from Yorkshire in the UK normally just like to tell it how it is, really.
And that's what we love about you, Tony. You pour it out. Before we go any further, I'm on your website. I hope it's the one that you're currently using, but it's tonytopping.wordpress.com. Is that correct?
That's the one, yeah. It's just undergoing a revamp just at the moment, but there's the biography on it and a couple of other things and the latest footage and crazy stuff happening, Randy, including a panicked man from the German government on the phone to me, allegedly. The biggest hazard of all in my line of work, the biggest hazard of all is fantasists, delusional people who think they work for the government, emails pretending to be people from the government. Quite an occupational hazard. You wouldn't have thought so, but it is. And there's stuff going on that's deeply shocking and deeply troubling to all men and women in Western society and in America regarding this subject. It's deeply troubling what I'm seeing. And of course, there is the situation where contact experiencers like myself, our experiences bear absolutely no resemblance to what we're reading or seeing on the internet. Yeah. The nearest match I get is guys in Russia and Sweden who are having similar experiences to me, especially in Sweden. There's a contact group in Sweden that has experiences with Nordic ETs like I have had. And it's just fascinating to have a dialogue with them because, like they say, what they're seeing is also entirely different to what they're being read about on the internet. I think the nearest thing I got to seeing all this was an image of, I think this guy Corey, who's got Nordic, with the kind of the Nordic thing, and he's got this image of this, I think it's something to do with Nordic extraterrestrials and disclosure and working with religious leaders. There's an image of the Nordic stood there, and a religious leader stood there, and it just doesn't really, that's what I've seen, just that image. The image says it all, because my contact with Nordics and the guy in Sweden's contact with Nordics entirely differs. And in fact, the route to disclosure is also entirely different to what is being written about as well. These ETs are very clever, and they're not without their agendas and their bad behaviour and unethical conduct as well.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I've come face to face with all that over the years. Since I last spoke to you, I've certainly grown and matured since I last spoke to you.
So maybe what we do is first let's define a couple of things, Tony. You've been on the scene for many years, talking, writing, and speaking at length about your experiences. You actually get to film and view a fair number of UFO sightings, even just, you know, in your day-to-day life. It's not like you're UFO hunter out there looking for it. It's just you seem to have the good fortune to be able to capture these things. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, indeed, Randy. I think it's a case of it is actually a case of don't wish, you might get it, because I certainly got it. I had it since the age of 2. I'm just coming to terms with an incident that happened to me at age 2, which is in fact a full-blown contact scenario that happened to me at age 2. But in my previous talks, I just dismissed it as some kind of vision that I had at age 2, and of course that's dismissed as the false memory syndrome and all that kind of thing. But it's actually a full-blown kind of Hindu vision that happened to me at age 2, and it means something, you see. So that incident happened. There's been some other disturbing incidents that have also happened, similar to like a science fiction movie. This may be because of the unusual situation I find myself in, and of course the contact experiencer is faced with a continual elusiveness and vagueness from the ETs. They're not coming in with the information that they should be coming in with. There's a bit of vagary going on. Well, there's a lot of vagary going on, really, and we're not sure what the agenda is that they're working to. But I know from my experiences there's been some over the skies here of my town, for example, the Air Force that's been turning up, and only the other day, for example, I filmed a UFO. Around about 6 in the morning, she came over in her craft. I say her because there's a lot to deal with. There's a lot to put up with, Randy, and it's kind of like putting it all in perspective as to where we're going in the future. I think we're definitely being warned by them. We definitely are being warned by them, and this is a skew to all that we're being told about disclosure happening and all that kind of thing. There's a narrative, there's a separate narrative running differently to everything I've read about on the internet. This includes the liaison with the Nordic ETs. Nordic ETs do not turn up at a religious leader's doorstep and say, we want to disclose to you. They work across a space-time continuum environment, and a lot of people don't really know that, but they do. They've even said it. Some of the things these things have said to me coming over the house in the UFOs, the reasons why they're here, all that kind of thing. I just have to be careful what I say, because there are forces out there, Randy, that aren't for the intention of good of mankind. And there's a very disturbing, I'll just say this to the listeners, there's a very disturbing lapel badge out there. There's a friend of mine on Facebook. He collects these operational badges. There's one, for example, operational flashes. I don't know what these insignia that the army guys wear.
Yeah, I've seen a bunch of these. Yeah.
You've seen a bunch of them, so you know what I'm on about. There's one of them that says something like Nellis, blah, 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 Las Vegas, Nevada, picture of an alien, what goes on in Nellis or whatever stays there, stays in Nellis. That's very disturbing. That's very disturbing for anybody who's in a democratic society and is freedom-loving to see that badge there with what goes on. It's just disturbing. And so there's been a number of incidents that have happened to me. There's been a supernatural incident that happened to me that I couldn't work out. There's been... You probably haven't caught up with me since we last spoke, but I think it was about a year later when I had this symbolic vision come to me from the Nordic ETs. This symbolic vision was because I was going to film a TV programme for Channel 4. I have to say, Randy, that in my 40 years of dealing with all this, I am currently, as I speak, completely and utterly out of my depth with it. Due to incidents that have happened with these things that are coming in with the UFOs over the house, I have to step back and just say I'm completely out of my depth with it now. I'm dealing with people who are smarter than me, people who look different to me but aren't, that we occupy the same spiritual space, and there's a Hindu Sanskrit flavour to what they do, and it creates quite a fascinating mix. My name is not up in lights. I don't have thousands of followers. I've not written a book yet. Everybody's screaming for me to do that. I am targeted individual as well. The oppression and secrecy behind it is disturbing. Very disturbing indeed.
Let's talk a little bit about the TI activity, because I know that's something that you've communicated to me, even though we haven't voice-to-voice talked or interviewed in these last 4 years. And I know you've been communicating that in certain ways, that you have in fact been targeted intensely. Who's targeting you? Is it terrestrial? Is it extraterrestrial, extra-dimensional? What's the source of your targeting as you understand it and the nature of it?
Yeah. Okay, well, obviously, one of the occupational hazards, or what you're not told when you contact them, when you have contact with ET, what you're not told is the minimal support that they will give you in protection of you.
And the kind I do actually know, brother.
You know it, do you?
Yeah, I do.
This kind of, Herald the Space Brothers, here they come. Aren't they brilliant? Well, they're not. They're not brilliant. In fact, they have their own agendas. They have their own military. They have their own judiciary. And they will just walk into your life and walk out again and completely wreck it. A few weeks ago, I was put at tremendous risk by an ET incident that happened where my blood pressure, according to them, went through the bloody roof. And you wouldn't believe it, Randy, but I've got 2 ETs speaking in English about my blood pressure going through the roof. Now, the question you've got to ask yourself, me being a Yorkshireman that I am, is it ET or is it some kind of very bizarre advanced military experimentation going on? It's a combination of the two, actually. And the thing is, of course, if they're communicating across a space-time continuum, the result of the interaction of time is collapsed. Therefore, you're heard right across the board. And a good example of that is just looking on YouTube, where you see pictures from the future. You've got kind of this kind of signalling system going on across a space-time continuum, where what's happening is they're trying to catch, whatever agency it is trying to catch a glimpse of them, these aliens coming into continuum and out again. Now, the thing is this causes, according to the people in the UFO, which is something I've coined, it causes the Sanskrit phrase Yasmat, meaning causal nature of, meaning what we do, we reap kind of thing. I call it the Yasmat Paradox. This happened in an incident after about a year later, one Saturday morning, where I had this tremendous vision of a bridge being built towards me, and what can only be described as an alien walking across this bridge who looked very similar to us but wasn't quite looking like us. And they said, they just said this single word, Yasmat, and then disappeared again. And I had to look that up on the internet, and it's Sanskrit for Yasmat, what we sow we reap. It's also, as I understand it, Randy, some links to German bloodline and German royalty, which is extremely bizarre, because only a few weeks ago I had the most bizarre incident with what appeared to be German officialdom on my telephone. It was the most bizarre thing. And I've met some fantasies in my time, but this guy, it was something else, and I'll go into that story. Maybe it's a pivotal story of what's actually going on. It might take the reader, because there's a whole plethora of information surrounding it. There was a German researcher, as I understand it, German guy, I've forgotten his name, who also had a call from a German officialdom, in quotes, asking questions about his UFO contact experiences. I think that's something I'd just like to cover for the listener, Randy, if you don't mind, if you would just like me to go. And I think it sets the perspective. So what happened is that I've had, just as a background for your listeners, I've had these experiences since the age of 2. I went to drama school in London, but before I went to drama school, my first UFO experience was in 92, where I had what the equivalent of a UFO, similar to Close Encounters of the Third Kind, coming in over the house and vanishing in the space of approximately, I counted it, 32 seconds. But that 32 seconds, I was wandering around for quite a few weeks, wondering what the bloody hell had hit me. Cut a long story short, these UFOs in 1996 started appearing over where I was staying in a place called St Mary Cray, Kent, at tremendous speed, and so on and so forth, until I returned back to Selby in about 96 to discover that they appeared over the house again. And that's when I started having these strange targeting going on. The targeting began after I actually filmed a UFO in 1999 coming in over the house. It was illuminating a television antenna. there'll be approximately four incidences from 1999 to this point now where the UFOs purposely and intentionally illuminate a TV antenna. In fact, what they did last year, I think it was, or was it this year, is they purposely illuminated my ham radio antenna. So what they did, Randy, is they flew in over the garden low. It's a female pilot. She flew in over the garden and illuminated the ham radio antenna by morphing. Literally the UFO changed shape, it flies through the antenna, flies out the other side of it again, and expands. And the thing is that when I get my documentary off the ground, which I will do, I want that antenna analysing the metal of it. I want it analysing just to see if the structure has altered of it in any way, because they don't do things like ours. Yeah. So I'm a ham radio guy. It's a Comet HF antenna. That's what it did. And then a bit later on, we had the scenario, as I say, of the Air Force deciding to have a major exercise over the town. It was unbelievable, and not a day doesn't go by, Randy, when we've got the Air Force in the field near me. The field is connected to a vision that I had in about 2015, which was delivered by the Nordics. During the course of my experiences, there's been a constant vagueness as to who these people behind the UFOs were. But in about 2014, 2015, one of these parties revealed themselves as to who they were and what they looked like. And what they did is they presented this tremendous vision in my sleep of these two triangle craft in the field near me, and these two clocks, one at 5 to 12, one at quarter to 12, indicating doomsday countdown. And then they had the symbol of the avatar, the avatar symbol flashing. And this Nordic guy, he was speaking to somebody, but I've no idea who, because he turned the volume down. I couldn't hear what he's saying. But he was speaking to someone. Specifically, I believe that he was speaking to somebody across the time continuum, actually. He was speaking to somebody about this. And then from that point onwards, we had the Air Force have a major air exercise and all that kind of thing. And the Air Force, and hardly enough, the German Air Force have been over here as well on exercise, flying over the fields where these UFOs have been filmed. In fact, only the other day, Randy, I actually filmed a UFO. I'll tell you the story about that in a minute. But I filmed the UFO at about 6:10 in the morning near the area where these jets have been flying. A few weeks back, the jets were over the house again practicing their RAF Typhoon fighters. They were practicing dogfights over the estate. And all of a sudden, my friend Jason, he ran some analysis on the film footage I took. Sure enough, triangle UFO is in the background there, but the pilots obviously didn't see it. So what you're getting is TV antenna, this constant theme of communication. You're an intelligent fellow, Randy. I bet you can guess where it's going. You've also got an incident with a UAV that happened last summer with me. Or was it this summer? Can't quite remember, Randy. It was maybe last summer or this summer. But basically, we had this UAV coming in, this drone, over the house, backwards and forwards for about a week or so. And then one day, I filmed it. And then I played back the footage to discover that this UFO had literally photo-bombed it, as it were, on the footage at tremendous speed. It came in from nowhere and went near it and then flew off again at speed. So what you're getting is communication theme, demonstration of technology theme, communication in the form of a warning to government. These are the three things that are going on. I don't think anybody's shaking the hand of religious leaders, and this resulted in a very panicked... He said he was an official from the German government on the phone to me after I gave a talk, and he was quite, what's the word? He wasn't calm. I could feel that he was panicking about something.
Agitated. He was kind of agitated, would we say?
Agitated, yeah. And what I think, he was agitated because it was kind of like a, who the F in hell are you? Mm-hmm. We've never seen you before on our radar. I want to talk to you kind of thing. But what happened was, I gave a talk at the UFO Academy in Watford. A very good talk it was as well. And I'd come up with some new themes. And some of these themes were about the visions that these ETs behind the UFOs had given. These visions are of a nuclear theme. It's not necessarily set in stone, but they are of a nuclear theme. So we've got warning, as I say, communication, scientific base. Communication of aerodynamic demonstrations in flight. For example, a friend of mine in Worthing filmed an Apache helicopter. It got photobombed by a UFO again. This UFO just came straight up to it and went away from it. What you've got, Randy, is I think over the skies above in Yorkshire, UK, and in Britain, there is an attempt by these civilizations at communication. I think they're opening communication channels. The question is how do our kind of military or air force react to that? But I think that is what's going on for some reason. So I think you can see from the narrative that I'm coming out with that this is the real life narrative as compared with what is written on the net. They will only disclose scientific information at the pace humanity goes at and no faster. Nobody at all is disclosing anything currently at the moment, Randy. No government, not the American government or the UK government, is disclosing anything to do with UFOs.
They're not only not disclosing it. What they've done is they've now salted the entire field with a bunch of false narratives that are gaining substantial audiences. These are entertainment franchises. They're not disclosure outlets. And so what passes for ufology now is nothing more than the type of productions you would see on the History Channel, Ancient Aliens, and all of these other commercial outlets.
Yes. Yeah,
guys like you, and your counterparts here in the U.S., because it's going on here, but it's not being talked about, are engaging in real time, real visual, actual visceral contact with both the craft and the beings.
That's right. That's absolutely right. That is absolutely correct. What got him going, this German guy, Randy, was the fact that the vision that we had, the vision that I had was of these two triangle craft, the clocks and all that kind of thing. But I had two further incidents with the Nordic. I haven't seen him for a number of months, actually, this guy who's a Nordic ET. But he's there. And they have always said to me that just because we're not here does not mean to say we're not watching over you. I am watched over. I'm lucky to be alive. I don't think I'd be here now to tell the tale if it wasn't for them, Randy. One of the incidents that happened was at Christmas of last year. I'm a carer for my mother. This story's in the public domain. I'm a carer for my mother, and I'd gone down with flu. And I couldn't get respite care for her. All the carers had also gone down ill, and I'm wondering how the bloody hell I'm going to look after her. It's Christmas time, and I said to my mother on this Saturday afternoon, I need to get some rest, Mum. I'm feeling unwell. I can't go. I need to just go and lay down. And bless her, she said, yeah, okay, son. And I goes upstairs, and I lay on the bed, Randy, and I can hear myself going delirious with fever, and the room spins, and I'm running a fever. Can't get it down. I've had it for over a week, and I'm worried about myself. At this point, I'm really worried about myself, and I remember passing out in the room. Next minute I know there's a knock at the door. In dreamscape, in dream time, as it were, just a knock at the door. And I goes downstairs in this dream time environment to answer it, and this Nordic guy stood there. And he says hello to me. Always seems to happen on a Saturday with them. I don't know why. It's quite funny that they come and turn up on a Saturday. They all seem to turn up on Saturdays for some reason, which is darkly comical. Anyway, so he's there, stood at the door, and he's wearing... Sorry?
I said it is actually kind of funny.
It is, yeah. You can... Over the past years, every Saturday afternoon or every Saturday morning, they've just turned up and just said hello and then gone on their way again. There was a bizarre incident that happened the other day in the living room where I'm sat without my shirt on and I am sipping a cup of tea. And it was on that morning that I'd actually filmed a UFO around about 6:15 a.m. on that morning. I'd filmed a UFO. I know that the pilot is female. I know that she does not look human at all. She's been tracking me for years, watching over me for years, and obviously they're making efforts to speak to me. Now, what happened was, Randy, no word of a lie, I'm sat having my dinner. I sip a cup of Yorkshire tea. I've not got my shirt on. All of a sudden, I hear this in the room. My mother didn't hear it, but I heard it. This, "Can I touch you?" female voice. And then I felt a finger, Randy, just run down my chest. And it had a very freaky effect on me, did that. Because I knew it was her, and I knew that she was there, and I knew that she'd kind of like run the finger down my chest. So I know that we've got this contact liaison going on. I know that we've got this flow of information happening. And at the end of the day, Randy, there's a guy in Mexico, you know, he's a professor, quite an eminent professor, who sent an email to me. And he said to me, look, I strongly believe, in fact I know, I don't know he knew, but he knew that I was having contact with the people behind the UFOs. Can you give me any information, he said, about those Andromedans from the Nordic Andromedan? I'd like some scientific information from them on this subject and that subject and the other subject. What is sad about it, Randy, is that I'm having contact with them, but he isn't having contact with them. But as I said to him, if he was to have contact with them, and this is the tragedy, and they started to feed him information, that man would be targeted by MK Ultra mind control from unknown sources. His life will be made hell, as it was mine. Yeah,
yep.
And it's terrible. It's absolutely terrible. And the thing is that you've got Tom, whatever his name is, his surname, and
Tom
the other
DeLong.
guy.
Tom
DeLong, and then you've got Mr. Good. I've not read any of his work. Having no idea that you, as a contact experiencer, can be harassed by gunfire, you can be harassed by alarm, you can have the most disturbing and shocking MK Ultra mind control hurled at you, because there is an unwritten law, Randy, and I'm very angry at this, an unwritten law that states you as a public individual, you as a citizen, are not allowed to have contact with them. And they have saved my bacon over the years on numerous occasions. And this guy, as I say, back to the dreamscape, he stood at the door and he's got this flying suit on with this insignia that on his chest, like a flying insignia, blonde, blue-eyed guy. Next minute, I know, we hear the kind of the familiar of the craft of the drone taking off. It's taken me because it's in parallel with the Brazilian UFO incident where a guy was taken by Nordics, you know, and he left an imprint on the bed sheet. That has happened to me, but that's fascinating in itself. You might be familiar with that incident, actually. So he takes me off. Next minute, I know, I'm taken, Randy, to the Ribblehead Viaduct. And it's a famous viaduct bridge up in Harrogate, near Harrogate, roughly kind of up near Settle, Cardiff, Carlisle way. And I remember him standing with me, and he looks up at this structure and he says, "Tony, that is a magnificent structure." That was his exact words, that it's a magnificent structure. Next minute, I know, 2 hours have elapsed, I'm back in the room, and within a few hours I was feeling better again. And the next day, I was fully functional. And it's just fascinating around how it just all meshes together. At the moment, I've not seen him for a while, but he's around. They're always around. They're never far away because of the undemocratic, very nasty, dirty little business that goes on behind the scenes with UFOs. I'm sure you get me on that. I don't want to expand further on it.
Yeah, you raise an interesting point here, and this needs to be said. People that have contact experiences, whether you call them abductions or contacts, it's a thin line between it. But I was recently in a conference in Houston where I had a chance to do a panel with 3 other UFO contactees, survivor people, one of whom was Travis Walton. I don't know if you know.
Yes.
Are you familiar with Travis?
I'm familiar with Travis. Never met him, but familiar, yeah.
Travis is a great guy. And, you know, talking in that panel and then later on talking to these gentlemen, specifically to Travis Walton, I came to realize the marker of true contactees, they're haunted by their experience. They absolutely,
yes.
Travis Walton,
yes.
in all the years and we're talking almost 40 years, has not shaken that. He has the look on his face when he talks about it. You look at it and you just go, that is the look of an authentic contactee.
Yeah. That's right, matey. You're just traumatized by it, and then on top of that, you've got these guys. Let us say, some are in the intelligence services, some are not. And you've got, for example, this German guy who phoned me, and he rang me up because he'd heard my UFO talk at Watford. I'd had previously, before I gave the talk, I'd had some very disturbing visions in sleep. And the problem with that is the ethics of these aliens is disgusting, because you're exposed to something that you do not understand. I know for a fact that they have ethical rows among them all about human beings, alien contact, them in the UFOs, us as human beings, the ethics of it all. And it was very disturbing. In fact, at the talk I gave, I had to throttle it all back so as not to disturb the audience, because it was visions of a future, and it was not good. Mm-hmm. The thing is that the ET that did that had no consideration at all for me. Actually, none at all. Just went ahead and did it. It affected me a great deal. We had another situation occur where the ET presented herself again and put me at tremendous stress levels, because, you know, Randy, as Travis may see, when you meet these ET, these people behind the UFOs, you're shocked. You are shocked because you're not conditioned in our current paradigm to accept it. You're told that we are not alone in the universe. When you come face to face with them, it's a bit of a shocker, and you're out of your depth with them because they're smart. But that does not necessarily mean to say that they understand ethics or human freedom or anything like that at all. They just seem to walk into your life and just cause a great deal of chaos. And this causes a conflict among them. And what is strange, my observation about them is this, is there's some sort of Cold War going on among them. You have the alien equivalent of Russia and the alien equivalent of NATO out there in this big... There's definitely something akin to that going on with them. Definitely.
Yeah, well, a lot of us are beginning to refer to it as Star Wars, just because that's an easy thing to hang on it. It's very obvious that there are factions involved. There are factions that are, let us just say, predisposed to be a bit more kind to the human than some of the others who are just vulgar. Yes. But nevertheless, it's very apparent that there are factions of ETs that are warring, and the question then becomes, what's the prize, what's the battle plan, and how in the hell did we wind up in the middle of you guys' war?
Yes, and in fact, Randy, I actually think that it's not... humanity is in the middle of something, that there's something going on that, for my own safety, I cannot talk about, but it shocked me, and I was told by them. And there's another issue as well going on that I was told by them as well, which was equally shocking, to do with more or less saying, don't you kid yourself, son. We have our hands full with people using our technology who kind of like shouldn't really be having access to our advanced technology, who are people of our kind. Do you follow me? Mm-hmm. On that theme. Now, it's kind of like very interesting, because you've got that going on, and what you seem to have is this kind of like, I believe that I'm dealing with or witnessing some type of alien police, some type of alien judiciary type help. And when we're doing it all for a reason.
Our Skype kind of collapsed there for a minute.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes, it cleaned up again.
Yeah, so they seem to be doing this for a reason. It's for a strategic reason that they're doing so much activity at the moment over this town. Anyway, they're pointing to something, they're hinting at something, and as a result of giving my talk and coming out with this symbolic vision that I had, the phone goes, Randy, one afternoon, Tuesday afternoon, I think it was, German guy on the end of it called Klaus, private number, says Mr. Topping, I represent What did he represent? He represented the security of the constitution of the German Republic. He represented the German part of the German defense intelligence, and he was very interested in what I had to say. He'd seen my talk at the UFO Academy, he said. Not only that, I've no idea how he got my number. And not only that, what was darkly hilarious was he said, "We're above this place in Frankfurt. It's our cover office. Look us up," which was the most bizarre and surrealist thing I have heard, frankly. It was just surreal. So then he kind of like went on the theme of, I want to know about your UFOs. I want to know about what you're not talking about is what I want to know about, he says. And I said to him, listen, matey, even if you were God Almighty, I said, have my own, I'm like a one-man agency, I have my own security kind of stamp. If I say something secret and I don't talk about it, I can't talk about it even to you. So it doesn't, I said, I'm using the old National Security Agency adage, which is, regardless of rank, if you're not allowed to know, we're not going to tell you. And what could I possibly want from you, I said, because I have everything I need, so I don't need anything from you, which always gets them every time. And the conversation bizarrely concluded with no gain, really, Randy, no gain from him. He put the phone down and went on his way. I should have recorded it. I didn't. I should have kept him talking. I didn't. But to me, it shows a complete and utter lack of respect. To have a private number just phone you out of the blue with some guy saying, oh, I'm from intelligence, can you spill your guts out about this subject, is just disrespectful from what I have been through. A week later, the phone went again on Sunday night, 10 o'clock Sunday night, this time, different sounding German guy on the phone wanting to know again. And I just cut him off, because it's utterly disrespectful. It shows no respect at all. And I'm annoyed about that. And rightly so, because I'm seeing very bizarre things going on behind the scenes, and it's getting me quite annoyed, frankly, really annoyed with it all. And I don't quite know where it's all going currently at the moment, Randy. I just don't quite know where it's all going, but it seems to be trucking on towards a scenario of contact with these things that are coming in over the house, that are talking to me and are concerned about things. It's worrying me a great deal, really.
So I guess the big joke in all of this is, here we are in the U.S., we're celebrating a 90s pop band rock star guy who says that he has some inside information, largely as a result of his background and contact with certain intelligence agency assets. The intelligence agency assets wind up looking to me like the same cast of characters that have been running ufology for the last 40 to 50 years. And on top of that, we're told that we are going to have disclosure through, much like the famous public hearings that they had here in the U.S. a few years ago, which was a joke as well, because they proposed nothing that was not already on the record. Most of it was 50-year-old evidence. It seems to me like they're almost on a fishing expedition to find genuine experiencers, to pry the clamshell open and to find out the things that apparently they're not even in the loop to know themselves.
Yes, you're a very perceptive man, Randy. That's exactly what's going on. So I'm currently in a loop, an information loop that they don't even know about, that they want to know about, but I'm guided. So it's very difficult for some of these geezers to turn up and go, hey, we're from the secret covert agency, blah, 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 because these things coming over the house whisper sweet nothings in my ear and tell me what's what and what isn't, because it's a spiritual thing with me. It's a spiritual thing. It's an immense spiritual journey, and for some reason I'm guided through it. And what is interesting, Randy, this is what I failed to mention. I knew I'd forgotten something. This German guy, what he was really, really getting jumpy about was the artificial intelligence components of the Nordic UFO craft. These triangles, Randy, I had an incident a few years back, about 2 years ago, I think it was, where persistently, for about a period of 2 weeks, I knew that I wasn't speaking to the guys in the craft, I was speaking to the craft. This triangle craft had a mind of its own.
Mm-hmm.
It was like something out of a science fiction movie, but it can be assured, and really it's quite traumatizing, actually, on reflection. The voice of a machine, very kind, very nice, but it was a machine, and it was the triangle that was speaking to me. And it was asking questions, the most bizarre, surrealist questions it was asking. It was interested in, for example, if I wanted to turn something off to conserve power for the environment, it was interested in that. It was interested in cosmological, in my spiritual cosmological link to the wider universe. It was probably doing a lot more than that. I understand that they use these triangles for data gathering. They're immense data gathering machines. They've got a mind of their own. I'm probably not even skimming the surface as to what actually went on compared to what I'm describing, but it happened. It was interesting, to say the least. It really was. So this German guy was asking, was I aboard the craft? What did the craft look like? It was artificially intelligent. Can you tell me more about that? According to the narrative that we're seeing, we're meant to have super mega advanced machines already that are artificially intelligent. But he was very, very, very concerned about that bit. What the impression I was getting was that these super duper agencies, these agencies that weren't in the loop, did not quite have the technology to have artificially intelligent thinking craft that could be adopted for space and sea, that could also have the capability, as I was told, to track the crew. If they got lost, it would come looking for them, that type of thing. And according to the Nordics, from what they're telling me, their technology is actually doing that, is quite dated for them, they were saying.
Now, did you just say that the craft travel in space and sea? Is that what you said?
Yeah, that's right. Marine space capable. So what you
okay, now that's a really important thing you just said there, based on things that we've talked about or I've talked about on the show. My understanding about how basically essentially linking to oceanic portals and going into deep space. So I just wanted to park that there. I don't know if you want to go into that at all or not.
Yes, this is absolutely correct, and the fact that it's artificially intelligent and can go after its crew should it need to, and the fact that that we're talking in the realm of sci-fi, but we're now saying that within the environment of the space-time continuum, it doesn't matter what time you're in. If you are humanity, you are as one in whatever time you're in. You're an intelligent guy, Randy. You get exactly what I'm saying, and I think our listeners do, because all contact and disclosure happens in a space-time continuum.
Exactly.
It doesn't
Yes.
It does not happen in terms of the government opening up its doors. It doesn't happen in terms of, I've not met the guy, I'm sure he's very nice, the rock star guy doing his thing. It doesn't happen like that at all in real life. And because of what we do now, we affect the future, as in a Yasmat Paradox. An agency gets lucky and it starts communication with them, and they start to disclose their information, which is confusing because the disclosure narrative is 100 years. If we're looking at a time continuum, we're about 125 years off. If we're looking at it from the environment of a time continuum. Now, I don't say that in public sometimes because I don't think it would be appreciated, but I think with you and your listeners, what I'm saying...
In which direction are we off? Are we behind or we're behind?
Sorry, say again, Randy.
I said, which way are we behind in terms of that clock, that 120 years? Are we behind?
We're back.
We're back.
We're definitely back.
That's what I would have guessed.
Yeah, I think we're definitely we're 125 years back from that. So we're kind of like before. So it's 125 years approximately forward.
That's a very interesting time in itself.
Sorry, say again, Randy.
I said that's a very interesting time itself, because that puts us back into the very late 1800s. There's some interesting things going on historically back there in terms of some craft that were being spotted in that era as well. There was advanced technology.
That is right. You're also getting time traveler incidents in 1900 as well, because you're in a time continuum environment, you see. And what will happen is that I call it up signal line. So what you've got is kind of like a future Earth that is in communication with them, and just grasping their science and technology. This is separate to the situation that you might have where Eisenhower met the aliens and it all went a bit deep black and they did their thing, and all that kind of thing. That's a separate issue altogether, one that raises concern, I feel. And so, of course, what you've got is that environment with what happened with Eisenhower and MJ and the stuff all going underground, and that secret is going to be kept from the public, isn't it? So what you've got is you will have this kind of rock star guy or whoever it is saying that disclosure is happening, when in fact it isn't, when in fact nothing's happening at all. They're not disclosing anything, full stop, and they don't intend to either. And that's kind of like, it's the way it is, isn't it, I think?
Boy, I have so many questions, I don't even know where to begin. So, just bouncing off the top of my head, first off, do you have the sense that the Nordics themselves are, let's just say, at least neutral in terms of favorable?
Yeah, I get
being favorable to humanity as a whole.
Yes, I get the impression that they are. The reason for this is a spiritual thing. I get the impression that there is a situation going on whereby the Nordics are similar to the police. There is a legality, there is a judiciary about them. Yeah. They're like this. There's something going on like the space equivalent of the United Nations out there. There's something going on whereby if you think you can do something all because you're alien, you have to think again, because these guys are smart, and these guys, I get the impression it's like, for my own sanity, because it's been horrendous with the MK Ultra stuff, they've saved my sanity on numerous occasions. They've come in, they've told me a bit about what's going on, but more importantly, they've let their presence be known, that they're here, kind of thing. As a result of that, Randy, the Air Force have been scrambling over the fields here and coming in and going out again and so on and so forth. It's been quite comical, but it's very serious. One wonders why they don't just get on with it, the Nordics, and turn up at one of our air bases and show people around the craft. They may as well do for the time.
Well, my question to you is, why Yorkshire? Why is that such a hot spot? Do you think that may be a vortex?
Yeah, what it could be, Randy, it could be to do with, it might not just be me. There could be other people in the town, and there could be other people in the UK, Sweden, America. It's not necessarily evolving around me, but what could happen, it's similar to that Amazon program, what's it called, where they're all telepathic but linked to each other.
Are you talking about Sense8?
Sense8, yeah, it's similar to Sense8. It is definitely similar to Sense8. If you can imagine some kind of universal architecture, intelligent being just suddenly, randomly takes someone at random and shakes their hand and says hello for a split second and off again, that crosses into a space-time continuum.
Actually, you're using a parallel that we've talked about on this show numerous times.
Okay.
Yeah, there is a connection that goes on with people.
Right.
Yeah.
I get the impression, and I could be wrong, but I get the impression that is the issue that's occurred, whereby suddenly at random, could happen to anyone, it happened to me, it might happen to somebody else, where suddenly your hand is shook, your shoulder's touched by it, just for a split second, and off again, for reasons unknown, but it's heard across the space-time continuum by forces unknown, and then you start to be trapped, because you're carrying the higher celestial spark within you for reasons unknown. Mm-hmm. You have become a walking paranormal mystery to aliens. That's how I see it, and some human beings are like that. It would appear. I could be wrong. I've said it before.
You make an interesting point there, because essentially contact experience occurs outside of normal space-time anyway. And anybody who's a contactee, however they express that, understands the experience itself is, it's not even surreal. It is a non-ordinary experience on a temporal, physical, and spiritual level.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And the fact that you're in a space-time continuum environment, the fact that it's esoteric, the fact that you still have secret societies and interests still looking into it in the years ahead, also has a bearing on what is impacted on the contactee, and it can get very noisy. It can get very noisy because I think fewer chosen and fewer chosen still, you see. So whatever they're after or why they're here is still not fully explained to me, Randy. But needless to say, it's on that kind of theme. It's as if humanity itself is somehow linked to the higher celestial, and we're rare. The same as the Nordic, they have a link to the higher celestial.
I agree.
It would appear it's a rare thing in the universe to have that kind of thing.
No. Here's another aspect. Anything which we observe, we change by the act of observation. It's a basic tenet of quantum physics.
Yes.
Is the very act that they are observing, that they are interacting, means that they've already stepped across the line, so to speak, in terms of their interactions affecting the destiny of both the individuals and, as a result of that, the collective as a whole.
Yeah, you're probably one of only few people who you've summed that up better than I could, Randy. Actually. You got it. Yeah.
I mean, my sense of it is that there's a rhyme and a reason to it somewhere. What I remember about my childhood contacts was that it was very much. A child doesn't have language to define spirituality; they simply exist in it. So the purest essence expression of that is largely the contact that occurs when you don't have comparative language and all of these structures that we build around us to compare things to. It's the purest type of experience. Whether it's an intrusion or not is another issue completely, and we could argue that. But I would say that experience vibrationally affects, it has a cascade effect, because it changes who that person is forever. They're never the same. Anybody that's a childhood contactee knows their life will never be the same. It's just like Travis Walden, yourself, anybody else that's had these experiences.
Yeah, that's absolutely right, Randy. I don't know from one day to the next what's going to happen next with them. I don't know from one day to the next. I really, really don't. I just know I'm lucky to be alive. I know that there was an incident about 2 years ago when I came face to face with, let us say, John Milton, or the Devil's Advocate, the guy. I don't know if you've seen the Pacino movie. The Devil's Advocate, where he owns a large. You're familiar with it? It's the film with Al Pacino and Keanu Reeves.
I've seen that movie. Now that you mention it, yes.
You've seen that movie, yeah. Well, let's just say it was an incident like that. In one of my lectures, I describe it as being an incident because of my certain abilities that appear to be present in me are noted, and I was told about a scenario that was going on. I was told not to go anywhere near it with this ability. If I was to do that, I'd just get my brains blown out by him. And it was indeed the head of the head of Dark Force Earth PLC. He'd come to visit, and that was an extraordinary moment, Randy. I'll just say it was an extraordinary moment. I do not do drugs. I wasn't high on drugs. All I can say, it was like celestial me witnessing that, and I felt the deepest sorrow. I felt absolutely sorry for it. Even though it was mega powerful, it builds up this empire. You hear of biblical incidents about this entity and all that kind of thing. I felt sorry because it was in its own prison. And I feel that it had developed its own artificial intelligence capability to keep going. It was fallen. It was one hell of an incident. It was a most unpleasant incident, I hasten to add. But as the alien said to the New Zealand contactee, Alec Newald, in the most underrated remark ever made by an alien, she said this alien called Xena, who met the Alec Newald driving down the road to Auckland, vanishes 14 days, suddenly awakes again to discover that he's not where he should be. He's about 20 miles off. 14 days have elapsed. You know of Alec Newald, yes?
Yes, I am. I'm familiar with that.
Yeah, you do. So what happens is the alien that spoke to him said that the Earth is ruled by a dark force that should be respected. It's been around for a very long time. And how right she was. Because when you're having an incident with something like that, you have to respect it, and you have to know when to quit while you're ahead and just step back, because you can't heal the world. Nobody's on the white charger coming to save you. You've just got to respect what you're saying gracefully. Just say, okay, yeah, okay, thank you very much, and you know, whatever God's gifts has given you, I just felt sorry. I felt very sad. I'm probably one of the few who maybe feel sad for such a thing, but I felt that because of what I witnessed. And it was the most bizarre incident. It was biblical. It was unbelievable. I still can't get my head around it, Randy. To have that kind of interaction, numerous interactions that I can't now simply keep up with, because I don't know why I'm having them. So I don't know. And that's maybe the right thing. From a psychological perspective, that might be quite healthy, actually, that I'm out of my depth with it and I have no idea why I'm having them, and I'm not going to make any grandiose statements about why I'm having them either. I'm just on a quest just to find out more. But it actually happened. That was about 3 years ago, and it threatened to do me in. I'm lucky to be alive. I am lucky to be alive. But you've never seen anything like it when these craft come over the house with the occupants. I know when they're here. I know when they're speaking to me. They could wake me up at any time. They could even actually, Randy, wake me up at 4 a.m. and tell me to go outside and film them. It's that the liaison is there, present. And yet, as I say, I get upset because you see these guys in the media doing their disclosure thing and aliens and UFOs, and then there's us lot up in the UK, and some of us are having hellish times, really difficult times with it all, you know. So I thank you for your support, you know.
Well, you know, I seem to have about me a group of people comprised largely of people with paranormal experiences, targeted individuals, survivors of government mind control programs such as MK Ultra. These are my people. And
yes,
you've drawn a lot of commonality here. In terms of the targeting, do you get the sense that you are at greater risk as a result of these beings, or that these beings are shielding you from what would be even worse repercussions?
They're shielding me from what will be even worse repercussions, it would appear. They've told me a number of things that I can't repeat, but they've told me a number of things that indicate clearly to me that I am a man caught up in a scenario that I have no understanding of, and it's for that reason that they're here. There's an ethical reason behind it. They're also not happy with some of the MK Ultra stuff that's going on at a very advanced level on the human collective consciousness. They're not happy with that at all. I get the impression that it's not for that to be done with. The human mind is a sacred thing, and they're telling me that with some of them, for example, some of the alien women that I've seen are very Hindu in look, striking, Randy, striking in look. In some of their cultures, the female is revered. It's held in, you know,
yes.
But some of, you know, striking with the Hindu kind of star in them, beautiful long hair, striking eyes. They don't look human, but they're very, very wise. And they have been watching for quite a while, and I get the impression from them that if they have a group of aliens that think they can do what the hell they like, or if they have a situation where the mind of the creator is abused in some way, they will only let that go on for so long. But that's at odds with allowing humanity to be at war with each other and them not intervening. I'm utterly convinced that some intervention has gone on in terms of the current climate that we see. When that vision happened with the Nordic guy with the clocks, it was at the height of the Ukraine crisis, where it was all ramping up. And then all of a sudden, after that incident, Russia backed it off. The tension dropped. So there's some there's something going on where there is an investment in humanity. I would hasten to add there's a possibility that some of them are here among us, and they're protecting their own. Could be something as simple as that, Randy. I'm not sure. I can't get to the bottom of why. Maybe it's not for me to know why for my own safety as well. You can know too much. And for that reason, sometimes it's best to keep quiet and just let people get on with things, I feel, because you can know too much for your own safety. And so it's best that maybe I don't know the full reason why, I do believe.
Well, and I also think that, this goes into a number of areas again, Tony, but one of them is that when I started this show back in 2009, I wrote a manifesto, and that manifesto was basically to make clear my stand on UFO abductees, contactees, and also vis-a-vis how the media then, which nothing has changed, was handling UFOs.
No.
What we've now seen is that it's gone from mocking and scoffing to a form of Hollywood glamorization of it on a low scale that I think is going to ramp up. Meanwhile, some of the films that are made seem to express certain truths, kind of veiled in plot lines. You mentioned several films. So it seems as though something wants to come out, and it seems, as we were talking earlier about the repercussions of an experience, just vibrationally, how we resonate in our own field as a result of these experiences is in itself a communication. There is something that has changed in my lifetime, and I'm pretty sure in yours as well, in terms of overall some acceptance to the fact that the paranormal experiences that are had by people who are having these type of contacts is within the realm of acceptable human, I don't want to say conduct, whatever. It is within the realm of not only possibility but probability now.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
I mean, the things we're talking about now would have gotten me checked back into the psychiatrist when I was a kid.
Yes.
The kind of things that you just say, I'm not going to talk about that.
Yes, that is absolutely right. I think in Britain we're lucky, but there's still every chance of a knock at the door, because of the stuff you're coming out with. But there again, it's a right to freedom expression, Randy. There's a right to express this. There's a right and a public duty to put this in the public domain as well as I think the public need to know what is actually going on. The MK Ultra stuff is an absolutely disgusting sideshow to it all that is very disturbing, deeply troubling. I know, as I say, I think I've probably told you this before, when I was under surveillance all those years ago, and still am. I mean, it was quite unbelievable, the MK Ultra stuff that went on after this phone call. About a few days later, it's as if I was being targeted by Dr. Bloody Strangelove. It was really, really bizarre, and it's disrespectful, utterly disrespectful. I just suddenly realised, Randy, when I spoke at conferences in the early days, I used to bang on about what they were doing to me and what they weren't doing to me, bang on and on about it. And then I suddenly realised I saw the energy in the room drop, and people just fidgeting, and it wasn't quite coming across correctly. And then suddenly, with guidance and feedback from a lot of support from people, I suddenly realised, obviously, that people want to know what's really going on, what is really going on. And so, my talks now focus on not what they did to me, but rather on all the UFO stuff and what's actually going on. In my talk now, I'll only give them about a minute. I'll only cover it for about a minute over what they did. And what they did to me was pretty horrendous, Randy. I mean, you're talking 3 and 4 in the morning with MK Ultra. Them kind of like waking you up and telling you how much salary they were on. Being followed, strange phone calls, gunfire, all this kind of thing back in the day when it was all going off. Strange helicopters filming you. You've no idea why. There was a helicopter incident that happened to me. An unmarked helicopter appears from nowhere filming me. All that kind of thing. You suddenly then reach a pivotal point when you suddenly realise that you have actually outgrown the people who have targeted you, and it's them that are reaching for the drinks cabinet, and you're twice the man, 3 times the man, and you're handling it.
Yeah,
because they can't. Yeah, and I never thought I'd get to that stage. I always thought I'd be the victim. And you know, as Dr. Stephen Greer says, love him or hate him, as he rightly said, you are dealing with psychopaths. You are dealing with very unstable people who have access to technology that they shouldn't have, and it's an absolute blasted scandal. It's a scandal. It's disgusting, and it makes me bloody angry. But that's just me. But I never thought I'd get to that stage where you evolve past them. Evolve past a guy who kind of targeted you or followed you in the pub or whatever. You know, I mean...
Well, you have to believe, too, that the fact that you are targeted means there's something of value. I mean...
true.
You were not taken out, although being harassed obviously is not pleasant, and I know people, God love them. I mean, the type of day-to-day TI surveillance and harassment and electromagnetic interference is horrible. And my heart goes out to them. But they're not dead, and there's clearly a reason why they're targeted and why they're watched and why they are harassed so horribly. It's because something inside of them, something either they know or something that they are, is of interest to a particular agency or group of agencies.
Yes, that's absolutely correct. So what you've got, I suppose, in the scenario of the rock star guy, where he's got his team with him, whoever they are, promoting this, that dirty little secret is kept out in the public domain. They're not wanting to go there. They won't want to go there. They won't want to go there to the fact that some contactee experiences of UFOs are heavily targeted with mind control and MK Ultra. It's not glamorous. It's not trendy.
One of my biggest criticisms of Corey Goode, and a lot of people don't realize this, because I reached out to Corey Goode back in 2015 as he was starting to emerge. I had actually followed the emergence of Corey Goode, and you don't know this and you don't need to. But I want to say this, that his initial stories were within the realm of believable. But where this all transgressed was when it went into this mode of the savior programs coming from extraterrestrial entities that have deigned to look down their noses at mankind and tell us how we should conduct ourselves. I have a real problem with this, because there's a line between the type of communication that you're receiving and the type of information that I would say avers towards creation of cults, which I believe is what's really going on. There's a cult that's formed around certain UFO figures, and as far as what is attempting to be emerged now out of this current crop of disclosures, this is largely marketing. It's largely not designed to reveal much because, let's face it, I think you're the key that says, oh gosh, they don't really have all of the data, do they? Because if they did, why would they need me? Yeah. And then there's this curious thing that has to do with the bases and the presence of ETs in military bases. This is something that's reported. I have not heard from him in years, but Barry King talked about this when he was on the shows with me a couple of times. And I think you know Barry King. Barry King was in the underground bases. And he reported some very disturbing things about certain races of ETs' involvement with military. Those races' involvement with military look to me a lot like the dark side of the ET spectrum, and the fact that largely this was some sort of dark symbiotic relationship for kind of a control grid over humanity. You, Randy, have put that into words better than I could. That's precisely. You're an education to listen to. Actually, you're a teacher as well as an interviewer, and listening to what you're saying. You precisely have got that correct. And then you've also got the other issue of there are some very advanced spiritual ETs out there who utterly detest that kind of thing. I've seen it from over 40 years of dealing with it. They
utterly detest it. They're not happy about it because this appears to be God's universe and the Supreme Architect's universe, and it's not to be abused. It's not property to be abused, it would appear. And so, therefore, behind the scenes, you have a little kind of war going on, a very big conflict of interest among these groups that the public don't see. They're certainly not turning up at the President's office unless, for example, in terms of all this, what will be concerning is, for example, the President, when he sleeps, he has no Secret Service protection. When he sleeps, he's open. Presidents, world leaders, etc., they're open to paranormal forces, and they're the people who are meant to be making decisions. Do you get what I'm saying? There are implications, aren't there? Ethical, moral implications to all that, because it happens in a time continuum, and that's of national security concern as well. But you've summed that up very eloquently.
Well, it's interesting you would say that, because the more you go back and you look at history, we have at least 3 or 4 U.S. presidents in the last century that have expressed, let's just say, a little bit more than a little interest in the matter. A lot of people don't realize that Richard Nixon, for instance, was extremely interested in the UFO subject. John F. Kennedy allegedly had contact and was prepared to disclose. Ronald Reagan was a big believer in UFOs, as was Jimmy Carter, who some have said also had some direct contact. So we have to assume that these beings, for better or worse, have access to our leaders and to pretty much anything that exists within our intelligence agencies as well.
I would suggest that. I would suggest also that there are 2 prominent world leaders at the moment who have been spoken to by them. And I would suggest that it's a safer place in this world when we've got women leaders. There's something, I don't know, but there's something going on where it seems that the women take the lead with these ET stuff. It's the women that seem to take the lead. I've seen, from what I've seen, it's always been the theme. This guy, now I've forgotten his name, in Russia. He sat down in front of some private journalists. He was a general. He was head of the KGB's psychic spy agency. Previn. Oh, I can't remember his Savin. Alexei Savin, head of the. He was he put me in contact. Joseph McMonigal put me in contact with him. He said, "Listen, this is." Sorry, say again, Andy.
Joe McGonigal. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, Joe McGonigal, great guy. He said, "Listen, this is my KGB opposite number back in the day. This is the guy. Have a look at him." And he gave me his name. By irony, it would appear there's a small detail on the Russian remote viewing website called newcosmology.com that indicates that the Americans funded their remote viewing, but they kept it quiet to the tune of so many million, but that was all kept quiet as well. But what happened was this guy Savin sat down with some Russian journalists and said, my psychic remote viewing team has had contact with an ET civilization. We accurately recorded the data. They would not give us any information to do with their military stuff. It was all medical related. What he said, what is fascinating, however, in terms of contact experiences, is the percentage for contact with male ETs is low compared to percentage of contact with female ETs. So there is a higher percentage with me in my contact experiences of seeing female than there is of seeing male. But this Nordic guy who's male seems to be around, seems to be present, and it's absolutely unbelievable. As a darkly comical and insane note, he even showed me a vision of the car he drove. They have vehicles like we do. It's just wild. It was just wild, Randy. But that's just an insane, darkly comical moment that happened in the course of my experiences. And so the thing is, with this great big juggernaut of a thing, I've got all my image analysis, I've got all my stuff, all this data. I've somehow got to get it into a book so that it's out there. And somehow kind of like do the best I can to get the book out there and get it all down, all this data down, because it's all history. It'll become history, a very unique history of contact and the strange goings on that have happened. I know for a fact that I think the the Air Force. I get the impression that the RAF, the RAF may be getting radar contact over this town from them because there's some kind of bizarre diplomatic channel of communication that they're wanting to open up. I don't know. There could be stuff going on, Randy, that is even more deeper than what I'm saying. Where I just don't know. But that appears to be where it's at the moment. Where it's at the moment is contact with ET, deeply spiritual, advanced scientific base, indications of communication, indications of advanced aerodynamic technology. And that they seem to be the key themes with me at the moment as to what's going on over the skies of Yorkshire. And, of course, communication with key decision makers, I think, via space-time continuum environment, moving towards a disclosure agenda is also a distinct possibility. You wouldn't read that anywhere on the internet, I don't think, but that appears to be what is going on over the skies of my Yorkshire town with me and a few other people at the moment here in the UK as a contact experiencer.
So what do you think that disclosure will look like? Is it going to be gradual? Is it going to be the kind of soft disclosure? Or maybe even more is that we're being psychologically prepared en masse for something that will be disclosure but will be, let's just say, subliminal in a sense, the preparation for this.
It would be very true, Randy. Yeah, you eloquently sum it up. But unfortunately, we have got the dirty little secret behind the scenes. We've got the dirty little secret regarding this. It's similar to, akin to the metaphor of a used car salesman turning up.
Surprised you were going to say that.
Yeah. Turning up and saying, "Hey up, Governor, we've got this lovely UFO, advanced piece of kit. Would you like to have it free of charge? Just turn your back on what we're doing, if you wouldn't mind, sir. You can have that UFO, but just ignore what we're doing, if you wouldn't mind. We'll all go tickety-boo. It'll all be very nice, thank you." And that about sums it up, I think. So while you've got that trucking on behind the scenes, then disclosure is actually blocked. Disclosure isn't happening at all because you've got that going on behind the scenes. If I could eloquently sum that up, that is obviously, I've got enough to do. It's not my responsibility, all that, Randy, and I suppose it isn't your responsibility either. But as a human being, as an individual who's been at the sharp end, that is currently where it's at the moment. Where it will evolve to in terms of disclosure is, I think there's going to be a liaison with one of the agencies. They will have a full-blown contact scenario going on where they will exchange information via a classified project. And I think that we're talking about 100 years from now, whereby they will just grasp the fundamentals of their technology and understanding. I do feel it's fascinating, really, when you think about it, and darkly comical, really. But I can't live a normal life. Because of all this, it's impossible to try and live a normal life. So I just try and do what I do when I do. But it's traumatizing. It can be shocking and disturbing. When I retire tonight to try and get some rest, I'll have yet again another restless night of constant bombardment, constant carry on. You're a wanker, you're a tosser, pardon my language. This is mind control going on, this, that, the other, from people who do not understand what the bloody hell is going on and appear to have access to technology that they shouldn't have. It's a high-stakes drama going on where the future of mankind is possibly at stake. And you've got probably the galactic equivalent of Hawaii 5-0 coming in. It's just comical. You've got to smile.
That's actually really hilarious. Wow.
It's hilarious, isn't it? Yeah. And it all started with a used car salesman, as far as I'm concerned. It all began with a used car salesman turning up, I think, anyway, in my humble opinion. So they're not these guys on Tom's team or whatever team they're on with this disclosure thing and the alien stuff. They're not going to want that secret. They're just not they just don't want to go there, and they don't want to go there with the people have been targeted with mind control, because that's the lunatic brigade, isn't it? We're the loon brigade. But I have got to make my stand, Randy. I have got to stand my ground, similar to the Greeks at the battle of wherever it was with their shields, and they had the Persian Empire coming down, and I've got to I can't budge, I can't move, and I can't make it up. It would be dishonourable and disrespectful to say that any of it is made up. I am bothered. There's a small percentage of me that thinks, is this military technology being experimented on me? Is some sort of advanced artificial reality going on? But no, that doesn't make sense, because the UFO footage analysis and the jets that go bombing in after them means that there's something going on. There's clear visual evidence that there's definitely something going on, and it's just trying to get to the bottom of that as well. So I think I've got to get on with the book. Popular demand, everybody's telling me I must write it.
You really do need to get the book out, because I think you have a valuable perspective that can balance some of the sensationalism that's rife in this field right now.
That's right.
There's just not, I don't know, I mean, I look at what's going on out there, but I'm not finding the quality of information coming, even from the experiencers right now. I think largely because they're traumatized, and a great number of them either can't or simply do not want to communicate what's really been going on.
Yes, you're right, Randy. And not only that, I mean, I had this guy from Mexico, eminent professor. I just can't remember his name, but he's written papers and he's wanting information. And the point being, what is the saddest part of all is I couldn't give him that information. But yet I'm the guy who's got them coming in there, speaking all this. I couldn't give him that advanced information, and that's a shame. In fact, I find that tragic. That he was asking for information on quantum physics and this, that, because he sincerely believed, which is correct, that I'm having a contact scenario going on, but I couldn't give him any of that information, and nor have I got it either. And that really did upset me. I found it upsetting, frankly, that I've been through all this but couldn't tell him anything. And I find that upsetting in a way. Maybe I wouldn't understand it, I don't know, but it just is bizarre sometimes. It is truly bizarre what is going on sometimes when you're faced with all this. Dear.
Well, I think really you know as well as I do that you can't dump everything that you know to one source. Yeah. Having said that, the researchers out there also are learning or will learn that this is largely a matter of aggregating a lot of data across a very wide data field. That I've been researching this stuff since I was a kid. I've been doing it on the air for nearly 10 years, and I can tell you that I don't deign to know all of anything. The more I learn, the more perplexed I become, and the more intrigued I become, and the scareder I become. That's really the horrible aspect of it. It's actually this weird kind of commingling of excitement, fear, and just the drama of you can't escape it. There's a gravity to it that pulls you in.
Yes. No, you cannot escape it. And I think there are prominent personalities within the media, within the political landscape, who have had contact experiences.
Absolutely.
And they're keeping it quiet.
Yeah, I do.
They're just I do believe so.
I have one more line of questioning for you. It may or may not go anywhere. There has been heightened news over the last several years, certainly since the time we last spoke, about Antarctica, and I'm wondering if you have any information regarding Antarctica, why can't I say this word, Antarctica, and what's going on with UFOs and potentially other things down there.
Well, I had reason to suspect a few years ago that some of the UFOs coming in over my house were from there. I had reason to suspect it. I had reason to suspect the bizarre behaviour of the UFOs, whereby one UFO would turn up, but two UFOs would turn up to shoo the other one away. This was in the early days, and I'm thinking to myself, that's very odd behaviour. One UFO turns up, small dot of light, but two different type of light UFOs turn up to shoo it away. The other scenario is UFO turns up, flies over, another UFO turns up, flies over me, but then another UFO turns up chasing after them. There's something going on that is possibly connected to that region or connected to something else, and I'd reason to suspect a long time ago that that's where they were coming from, because you see, at the end of the day, the rumour mill reports, and I only hear this rumour, that Antarctica is the unacknowledged national state. Antarctica is the unacknowledged country. It's the unacknowledged... and therefore, that piece of the jigsaw would also block disclosure as well. If you had that overriding scientific base from World War II still active and quietly accepted as a nation state, but the secret is never told, that could be a block to disclosure in my humble opinion. There's a situation as well of portals over Antarctica, but I'm not clear on it, Randy. I'm not clear.
Well, some have said that things don't make sense, that expeditions that have occurred down there, even going back into the early 20th century, seem to indicate that there was something down there that didn't conform to our present understanding of the Earth itself, that there may actually be more land there than would be likely under our current scenario, if you catch what I'm saying. That we're either talking about an extension of a landmass, or we're talking about a place that goes off into another realm, another dimension, something going on there.
Yes, I concur with that. There's a possibility that some of the ET groups that we see are certainly not from other planets, but are from that region. And they look like
suspicion, brother.
It's been my suspicion. The fact of the matter is that I don't know whether you know about this, but the United Kingdom, even before Operation High Jump, was involved in hunting strange going on in Antarctica under something called Operation Tamerlan. Operation Tamerlan was a special boat squadron operation due to the fact that a marine platoon had been mysteriously done in that region. They, according to the witness who gave his testimony and didn't change it for 10 years, he was interviewed 10 years later, it still hadn't changed. According to the witness, he was asked to go to the Falkland Islands where they were practicing Arctic combat conditions, and then they went to Antarctica to hunt what could only be described as the polar men. And he describes this incredible incident where his unit come under attack by these polar men, and how they gave fire, and how they repelled them back, and the fact that he'd seen strange bases there even before the Americans got there with Operation High Jump. There is something going on, the UFO phenomena. These UFOs are connected somehow to that region as well. I don't think there's any getting away from that. I really don't.
That is so interesting. Brother, you know...
Yeah, Operation...
I'm looking at the clock. We're running out of our time here a bit.
All right.
This has been beyond interesting and fun, Tony. It's been too long now.
Thank you. Thank you.
Let people know anything you want to know going out, mention your website, any projects you're involved with, or just simply that where they can find you.
Okay, well, they can find me on my website, tonytopping.wordpress.com. You can certainly find me on YouTube. If you're media and broadcasting, I'm on LinkedIn, where you can find me there as well. I've got possibly 2 TV projects going on, one of which is going to be absolutely fascinating, because I think we're going to do the flying machines again. We're going to reconfigure some ancient flying machines as the concept.
Nice.
Yeah, we think we'll do that. I'm very pleased at the fact that I've got kind of TV people. I like that kind of thing. I've worked in that environment. I just like it, Randy. It's just nice to do a bit of stuff in front of the camera. So there's that going on. But of course, the main thing is to get the book written, I think. So we'll have to crack on with that. I'm thinking of doing a visual book as well, like a book where all my photos and image analysis is put in one book. Don't know what you think of that, but I'm thinking of doing one.
I think it's an awesome idea, man. I think a lot of what you talk about is very visual. Even when we're sharing these words, there's a lot of mind pictures being transmitted. I don't know if you know this, but I feel really connected to you when we talk. And I get lots of little impressions and things from you that are very interesting.
I think people know a bullshitter when they know one, don't they? And that's been the key to my success, Randy, because I'm actually recalling events that have actually happened. Yeah. And I think that's a good thing. But listen, you've been a teacher to me this evening. I've been listening to you. Some of the things you've come out with have been a tremendous teaching experience for me. I get, I've learned some things, and that's a good thing.